What's up, gangsters? How about some Sunday random? Okay, here we go. I have lots of things to talk about this time. For the sake of continuity, let me backtrack to the little Fujimi Mini Cooper that I've been building. As I showed you before, it had a horrible gap all the way around the interior tub and the body shell. And that just was not going to be acceptable. Several people commented that they thought maybe that was because the windows were supposed to fit in that gap. Well, what those guys did not know is that all the glass on this Mini Cooper goes on the outside. So basically it rests right here on this ledge. So that was not going to work because the gap was enormous. So what I did basically is I wrapped a piece of I think it's like 150 thousandths by 150 thousandths square styrene around the edge of the tub. Pop that off there and flip it over, you'll be able to see. If you look underneath there, you can see what I'm talking about. Basically, I just formed that and glued it in place with extra thin. And that took up more than enough of the gap in several places. I actually had to file it down a little bit and shape it a little bit. And it's not perfect, obviously. This is not my best body work. I mean, you can see right there, I've still got some evidence of that. But that is not a big deal because the inside of this thing is going to be covered with a thick layer of dust and dirt. So I don't think any of that stuff is going to show. And obviously the gap is not completely filled. But by the time you get the windows in here, and I am going to have the front windows removed as if they've been rolled down so that you can see in there a little bit better. I don't want to waste all that weathering effort. Plus, if I don't have the windows rolled down, then I can't justify having the whole thing full of dirt, which helps hide the gaps. Anyway, you guys get the idea. I think it'll all turn out fine. The bottom line is, this thing here is really just supporting cast for the story that I'm trying to tell with this vignette. All it does is sort of establish the date and the location or time period, not really the exact date, but anyway, you get the idea. So, moving on to other stuff, I have been spending most of the last week working on my Honda Monkey project. Because, as I showed you last time, I got a bunch of my 3D printed parts in that I had done from a very wonderful contributor who has one of the new Anycubic photon machines. So I just want to talk a little bit about those parts. But first, let me show you where I'm at with this, because I'm pretty fired up about this. I think this is cool. This is the whole handlebar and control set. As you can see, this is a mixture of parts from the Form 2 that John Geigel runs, the handlebars, the grips, these blocks under here, those are all from the Form 2. The parts that are painted in black, and I'll explain that in a second, are all stuff off of the Photon. And then I've got these little Master Club resin bolts in there, which are just super cool. They're perfect because those flange head cap screws are really common on motorcycles, so they're cool. I'm pretty happy with this. It's fun to see it all finally come together. Still got just a little bit of finishing work to do, but that gets into what I want to talk about. Oh, I forgot to show you this. This is fun too. These lower handlebar mount blocks are actually held on with tiny little 1.4 millimeter bolts. The threads are drilled and tapped into those blocks. So it's super cool and super solid and goes together pretty much just like the real thing. Anyhow, the finishing work. So, you can see on some of these parts that I've been doing a little bit of sanding and priming, and that's just, you just have to. 3D printed parts, no matter how good they are, they're going to have some layer lines. There's also with a DLP style SLA machine, and I'm not going to get into the technicalities of that, but you may also have some artifacts just from basically from the pixels. You can see that on the sides of some of these parts. So like right there, you can see, if it'll focus, that there are some vertical lines in addition to some of the horizontal lines that indicate the differences between some of the layers, or where, you know, there's been a little bit of a shift. Anyway, so that all has to be dealt with if you want it to look really good. So my basic strategy is to just prime the thing with the whole thing with a normal layer of Mr. Surfacer 1500, and then come back and spot prime in the areas that really need, that I know are really going to need a little bit of extra filling. So let me explain that. So like right here, you can see this is a part that's just been primed regularly. The other part, I was lucky enough to have multiples on all of these, has been very strategically spot primed with a real heavy layer or 2 or 12 in the areas that I knew were going to need some attention. So you can see that curved surface on the top of that upper bar clamp is nice and smooth, because by just being real precise with my being real precise with my spraying, I just applied an extra thick amount of primer there. So when I came back and sanded it, then you can see, like on this part of the clamp for the front brake, then the primer does its job and mostly, anyway, fills all that in. It looks like I've got a little pinhole there I need to take care of. And there are a few of those in different spots. But that's kind of one of the main things with getting a nice smooth surface. These parts are fantastic, and they don't take a whole lot of work. The stuff sands really nicely, but again, if you want everything to be nice and smooth, then you've got to deal with that. The other thing is that I purposely sized all of my holes to where I was going to have to basically chase them or ream them out, whatever you want to call it, before all of my little resin bolts and things would fit properly. And I think that's a pretty good strategy, because this machine is pretty accurate. I mean, I'm impressed at how accurate it is. But everything is going to be just slightly oversized, because you get a little bit of a bloom outside of the curing of the edge of everything as it's cured. So that means that your holes are all going to end up being a little bit undersized, and like if they're a side-facing hole, they may not be perfectly round. So you kind of have to plan on reaming those out anyway. And so if you find yourself designing some parts that you know are going to be 3D printed, then I recommend that you do account for that. Also, it's nice when you can work with the person doing the printing. You can have them leave everything on the build plate, or whatever you want to call it, which they like, because they don't have to spend the time of removing all the supports. And then it gives you a little bit of something to hold on to while you're doing some of that finishing work that's required. But you have to be careful when you clip the supports off, because they can be pretty brittle. And if you're not careful and you snap a support off from underneath, if it's like near the edge of something, as a lot of these are, you can kind of see where some of those supports were. When they break off, they can leave a little bit of a divot, and if you're not careful, obviously, that can screw up your part. Those aren't going to show, so no big deal there. Anyway, the 10 minutes is almost up, but I want to very quickly mention a couple of things that I got in the mail. One is I got a full set of these decal setting solutions, brand new from the guys at UMP, Ultimate Modeling Products, and these are nice. They give you a strong, extra strong, and a normal. I like that, normal. I don't know exactly what normal means. Haven't had a chance to test these out yet, but I will be doing a project before too long that will require a bunch of decal application, and I'll be using those. But I expect them to be very good because Paul is a model maker himself. He does a lot of decaling with his race car models, and so I know he's tested the shit out of this stuff, and he wouldn't sell anything that wasn't any good. You guys know I love me some sanding tools, and I've been really impressed with everything from Infini. They have a new variety of sanding sticks or boards or whatever you want to call them. They call these their zebra stripe, I guess because of the pattern that's in this abrasive paper that's on them. Anyway, these are pretty sweet. These are more of a traditional sanding stick. They're pretty stiff. They're not, they have a little bit of a sponge to them, but not even as much as these. These are a little softer, a little finer, a little different type of abrasive. But now, with these, Infini has now 4 different products for sanding between the sponge sticks, these different boards, and their sheets of sponge material. So this is good stuff. Now, if I can just convince them to make something like this in a Fini stick, like these from UMP, that are very handy, then they'll be giving Paul and those guys a run for their money. At any rate, that's it. That's nearly 12 minutes, so I got to shut the hell up. Bye.